For this video, I want to invite you to join me in celebrating the best of the best, the top 10 players of the modern Universus era. This is not a top 10 list of all time. We do not care about your accomplishments 10 years ago, 20 years ago, just of the modern Universus era. And I have attempted to strip out all of my biases to the extent possible and only look at the data, only look at the facts to make this top 10 list. So the first question is, when did the modern Universus era begin? And for me, the best date would be April of 2024, almost exactly 2 years ago from today. That was the end of the MHA only era of Universus. You know, there was 4 years from 2020 through the end of 2023 in Jetburn, where Universus was basically synonymous with the My Hero Academia collectible card game. We were one and the same. There were no other IPs in the game. It was MHA only. And when MHA stopped being the only IP and we had Cowboy Bebop and Trigun Stampede Challenger decks released in early 2024, we had Yu Yu Hakusho Dark Tournament was the first booster set of that year in February of 2024. A lot of the MHA players quit the game. And a lot of new players have come into the game that are fans of these other IPs. You know, we had Yu Yu Hakusho fans, Critical Role fans, Godzilla fans, all come and join Universus. And so the player base has dramatically shifted between now and the MHA only era. Now you'll notice I didn't start Modern Universus right at the beginning of 2024 with that shift. I put it in April, and that's because in March, webcam events officially died as official events of sponsored by UVS Games. And that was because there was this tournament put out there, a Wish tournament. You had to play Yu Yu Hakusho characters. It was a webcam tournament, and the winner got their own character card, similar to what world champions get today. And the winner of this tournament ended up being caught cheating in that same tournament, along with someone else who also made top cuts, I think was caught cheating. Might have been a different webcam event. I think it was the same Wish event, though. There were a couple major cheating scandals that occurred, and UVS Games decided that they're just going to walk away from the format. It was too hard of a format to police. Webcam continues today, but at a community run level and not at a official Universus events level. And during the MHA only era, webcam was one of the main ways to play the game. You know, 2020 is when the world was mostly shut down for COVID and players were playing card games at their house. And so webcam was a major part of the My Hero Academia era that ended with Modern Universus. Kind of a sad ending there. But let's not focus on that too much. It was also this April 2024 was the center point of major design changes. At the end of 2023, the first set that had this was Jetburn. There were new card layouts. That's when we have the card back that we have today. Let's see. I was trying to find a card near me. Yeah, that's when we have this card back, which kind of mixed the blue of the MHA only era and then the orange of the retro era and what the card used to look like. I think when the game was called like the Universal Fighting System instead of Universus and UVS. And then in August 2024, Attack on Titan brought major changes. You know, we had blitzes, 4-check attacks, attuned symbols, all sorts backups came in AOT. And so April 2024 felt like a nice halfway point between those changes. So that's what I'm starting at. The first United States major event, in my opinion, of the modern Universus era was the Las Vegas Regional in April of 2024. Okay, now to talk a little bit about the data and how I scored all the players throughout this era. First, I combed through the top 20 of every modern era competitive event. I didn't want to just look at who topped. I also wanted to look at who just barely bubbled out of making top cuts at each of these events. I then assigned point values to these placements. So you got X number of points if you made top cuts, X number of points if you then won a round, and then a massive number of points if you actually won the entire event. From there, I scaled up the points based on the attendance of the event. So a 170 player event would have quite a few, you know, those points would be weighted much more heavily than an 80 player regional would be. And I also scaled up points based on prestige. Basically, nationals and worlds got a little bit of extra points because those are just more important events. You know, when you are a world champion, you are immortalized. You get your own character card. You are remembered forever. And then I also analyzed player win percentage. Now, this data was actually provided to me by my teammate, Drew. And so I didn't double check all of his math. I'm just trusting it. But I used player win percentage to break some tiebreakers. And then finally, I said I'm trying to strip all my bias out here, but I did add a little bit of a vibes tilt. Basically, the vibes tilt is if a player, all the results was coming on just one character, then I would weight that a little less than if a player was playing a wide variety of characters, or if a player was just playing decks provided to them by others, like known quantity decks, or if, that would be weighted a little bit less than if a player had created their own list, their own very, very unique deck idea. So I put a little bit of a vibes tilt to things. But not much. I would say that accounts for like 2%, maybe 5%. Okay, so enough talking about data and the boring things. I've probably lost half of you already. Let's get into the list and celebrate these players because this video really is all about them. And I just want to celebrate their accomplishments for a moment before we kick off 2026 in a couple of weeks here with Chicago. So at number 10, we have Mitchell Chimono. I probably butchered his last name. I can never remember how to pronounce it correctly. I should have just said Mitchell. Mitchell, he got second place at that Wish tournament and then was awarded first place. And so now he has his own character card here. Whenever a player in this top 10 has their own character card, I just put that character card instead of a photo of them. Very well-designed character, by the way. Very fun to play. Mitchell got a data score of 428. He had a win rate in the modern era of 61%, very respectable, but it is pretty well below the rest of the top 10 here. And achievements, we have top 4 at U.S. Nationals. That was the largest event in this data sample, and so that got a lot of prestige points here based off attendance. And then top 8 at the Louisville Regional, top 16 at the Atlanta Regional in 2025, and top 8 in the Glasgow Regional. The characters that I most remember Mitchell for is Ezekiel Midoriya. He played that at both Louisville and Atlanta, where he top cut. He actually beat me in both of those events as well. And then Bertolt is who he made top 4 with U.S. Nationals with. He was one of the first Bertolt players to basically be playing purely on the front side. I can't remember if Nationals took place pre or post the Bertolt errata. I want to say pre, but I'm not 100% on that. But Mitchell was playing like Stun Grenade and teaming with the Attack Titan and Lethal Slash and just a very, very aggressive turn 2 focused Bertolt list. Actually beat my brother in top 16. So we can just call Mitchell the Tomb Slayer here. I don't think we've beaten him yet at a major event. At least I can't remember if we have, and he's 3-0 against us. So Mitchell coming in at number 10. The data score was very, very close with a lot of other players. So I had to make some sort of tiebreaker. And I decided that the Wish tournament would be that tiebreaker. Even though the Wish is technically before the modern era, in my opinion, the fact that Mitchell has his own character card went a long way. And had I, just taken the start back a little bit, his win percentage would be even above 61%. If we had included that, it'd be like 65, 66% or something. So Mitchell coming in at number 10, does plan to keep playing the game in 2026. I tried to talk to as many players on this list as possible and gauge their interest in 2026 events and where they're going. Mitchell right now plays for the Trading Post, a relatively new team, but coming on pretty hot, and they have a huge local championship just this next week. I think they're at like 50 plus players already. Okay, at number 9 on this list, we have Mike Hardiman, our only overseas player to make this top 10 list. Mike had a data score of 447, a win rate of 73%, and he got top 4 at the Sheffield, I think, Season 1 Regional of 2024. Then he was the champion of the Sheffield Season 3 Major Regional of 2024, and then he was the champion of the Chelmsford Major Regional just this last year. The characters that I most remember Mike for are Bakugo, where he won, I think it was Sheffield, using, I think it was like a combined firepower risky encounter. I think it was pretty early on, but before both of those cards got their bans and erratas. And then Ymir, he was on Lethal Slash Ymir. I remember that either in finals or before finals, he actually turned to somebody without transforming, thanks to the damage pump of Ymir and playing all of his lethal slashes. So, Mike, I was watching the stream for, I think it's Patriot Games. They streamed their local championship just this past week, and I think Mike took second in it with Godzilla Titan of Terror. So he is still playing the game and going strong. At number 8, we have Tim Keefe from Rochester, CCG. I'm showing his character card here from being 2017 World Champion. Tim, actually, if you search him on UVS Ultra, he has several character cards. We also have 2018 World Champion here, and we have the 2013 U.S. National Champion. So, but we're not looking at past eras. All of these character cards come from past eras, but Tim's been no slouch in the modern era either. Data score of 450, win rate of 71%. You'll notice that most of this top 10 is hovering around that 70% win rate number. That seems to be kind of a mark of greatness. Achievements. He was the champion in Las Vegas, the first major regional of the modern era. Top 8 of Worlds of that year with Ymir. And then top 4 in Toronto just this past year. And he also just barely bubbled out of a couple of events. Actually, I'm showing Not the Brave here. Tim, I think, got 17th. I want to say it was Louisville. It might have been Atlanta with Not the Brave. And then he won Las Vegas with Endeavor 3. And that was one of the last, results that Endeavor 3 had before this character got kind of power crept out of the meta. But one thing about Tim is that I get the sense that he's having fun at these events. Like he's not trying to play the best of the best meta decks. Like we have this Not the Brave deck, which was very, very cool and probably very, very good, but it wasn't like meta at the time. I don't think anybody was putting Not in their top 10. But Tim still got to 17th place. Actually, in one of the events in the data sample, Tim was playing like Rikia because he was dared to, I think, on stream. Now, Rikia is like one of the worst characters ever printed in my time as a player. And Tim still managed to get some wins in St. Louis with it. So the fact that Tim has been playing, I would say, a little bit more for fun lately than ultra serious, and he still has a win rate of 71% in this sample size, that's very, very impressive. All right. Tim plans to continue playing in 2026. He'll be at several of the regionals this year, but he said how serious he takes the regionals, he put a question mark. We'll just have to see. Next up at number 7, we have the reigning world champion, George from Let's Talk UVS, with a data score of 461, a win rate of 82%. No, you did not misread that, and I didn't mistype that. That is the highest win rate of anybody in this top 10, and I think of all of Universus, if you exclude players who played in one round or one competitive event and just had a couple rounds. 82% is just crazy. Took second place with Porco at the Atlanta Regional, and then became world champion with Godzilla, and he will be the next Universus player to have his own custom character card created. The reason we don't see more achievements for George here is because a lot of the times he works as a judge at these major competitive events, and in Chicago, he will be a judge again. You won't have to beat him to get your own backup card here in just a couple weeks. And so that held him back from playing in a lot of other events. I shouldn't say held him back because he loves being a judge, but just that he didn't have nearly as high of a sample size as others on this top 10. That doesn't mean that he wasn't around before late 2025. He did bubble out of Vegas. I think he took 10th place with Younger Toguro at the Las Vegas Regional. And then he was kind of the master behind the Let's Talk UVS Aaron Nick Reagan deck that kind of took over Albuquerque here this past year. 2026, George plans to take it a little more easy. Like I said, going back to judging for Chicago, probably going to be playing more for fun decks at local championships before he ramps it back up for the World Championship in November. Okay, number 6, we have a very happy Barlow here with a data score of 480. Oh, I should have said from Team Couple. A win rate of 70%, and top 8 in Las Vegas, top 16 in St. Louis, top 16 U.S. Nationals, top 16 Worlds 2024, top 8 Denver, top 16 Atlanta. Basically, every event he goes to, Barlow is going to top. He's just almost guaranteed. The sad part is He's never won a top cut match in the modern Universus era. That's actually insane to me. We have 6 top cuts, but Barlow is currently 0 for 6 in round 1 of whatever top cuts that he makes. So guaranteed to get there, but then immediately gets cut down after making it. Talking about 2026, Barlow said his main goal is to win top cuts, and get the monkey off his back, and have some playoff success, Whenever I think of Barlow and his play style, I think of these momentum-based characters. In the MHA only era, Barlow was on Amajiki quite a bit. Then he played Jean at Worlds and got top 16 with this character that nobody was really expecting to do well. When Critical Role released, he switched to Tarion and got top 8 in Denver with Tarion. Lately, I feel like Barlow switched more from like momentum-based characters to backup-based characters. Top 16 Atlanta with Zeke. And we'll just have to see where Barlow goes from here. I think he was also on Mimic for a little while. Maybe that was the top 16 of U.S. Nationals was Mimic. So, always doing momentum things, asset things, backup things. But Barlow will be in 2026, and his goal is to have some playoff success, some top cut wins. Okay, now we move on to our top 5. And I'm just going to say 6 through 10, the data scores were close. 480, 460, 450, 447, 428. We're all in this lower 400s kind of tier here. So we got Barlow almost at 500. Now you're going to see that the top 5 clearly pull away. Now there's a huge difference in the data score. I think there's a clear-cut top 5 for this list. And so kicking us off here, we have Justin Birch at number 5 from Team Final Round Game Shop. Data score of 576, win rate of 74%, top 4 Atlanta, top 8 at Worlds 2024, top 8 Louisville this year, and then top 4 at Worlds this year. Now, one thing you'll notice about Justin is his best performances came in the most prestigious events, which the data score really liked. We had a top 8 Worlds performance, then we had a top 4 Worlds performance. If Justin continues on this trajectory, then he's probably going to get second place here this next year and then win Worlds the year after that. When I think of Justin's play style, I think of these very punishing characters like Smiling Titan and Mark Tyner, where they force you to play the game on their terms. To me, these are really, really frustrating characters to play against, but it's to Justin's credit that he identifies that and plays into it as much as possible. So both of these decks, he was also primarily running forecheck attacks. He hosts a podcast with Tim Keefe and Kevin Broberg and Will, and called Fourchecks Cast. It's a very, very good content for Universus. It's one of my favorites to listen to. Every time they go live, I try and tune in and listen to them because it's very, very good information. You're getting information from the best of the best players. And then Smiling Titan, but pre-errata Smiling Titan was just, you had to deal with the massive stats that deck was throwing down, and then Justin would build a very, very high value stage that you had to chew through. So Justin could survive, actually, both these characters without doing much blocking. Justin is going to continue with Universus in 2026 and be very active at competitive events and hopes to do better than top 4 at this next World Championship. Okay, at number 4, we have Kevin Broberg, the 2024 Universus World Champion, and he was also the first World Champion of the MHA only era. And he has character cards from even before that. We have the 2017 UK National Champion here, 2013 Canadian National Champion. So Kevin Broberg, been playing Universus for over 10 years and been winning at Universus for over 10 years. I think Kevin was pretty clearly the best player in 2024. He had a data score of 729 in the modern era, a win rate of 70%, top 4 in Las Vegas, top 16 in St. Louis, and then he was the champion of the Atlanta Regional. Now, the Atlanta Regional was the first major regional of the Attack on Titan era. And then he was the champion of Worlds 2024, and then top 16 in Louisville this past year and top 8 in Toronto this past year. So a little bit of a fall off in 2025 compared to 2024, but that was also because, how do you follow up that 2024? One of the things I love about Kevin is that he is so positive all the time about Universus. He is very, very willing to accept change and adjust his playing style, adjust his deck building to that change. So when Attack on Titan came out and changed up the game quite a bit, Kevin was the fastest to adjust. You know, he dominated early Attack on Titan major regionals. We had Irwin, where he was using like Risky Encounter and Combined Firepower. I think he was also using like Twisting Azure Inferno. We got like a trio of banned cards using all of those discard pile effects that Attack on Titan gave us. And then for Worlds, he went for this like hybrid 4 checks, 3 checks deck with Hanj that had a ton of damage reduction in it. Anyway, he's playing really, really cool attacks like Readied Shot. It was just a very interesting toolbox kind of deck, leaning into the raw value of Hanj in the second set of Attack on Titan. Kevin plans to go back to his 2024 ways. He said maybe watching this video will give me a little, you know, the boost that I need to take 2026 more seriously. Okay, now to our top 3. We have Andrew Porat from Team Let's Talk UVS. Data score of 758, a win rate of 78%. That is the second highest win rate of this top 10. Second only to George Rangel, also of Team Let's Talk UVS. Achievements, top 8 at St. Louis. He was second place at the Atlanta Regional, losing to Kevin Broberg. He was also on Smiling Titan, similar to Justin Birch. That was 3 of the top 4 there. Top 16 at U.S. Nationals, champion of Denver with Rodan, champion of Albuquerque with King Ghidorah, and then top 16 at Worlds this last year. So Drew won back-to-back regionals in 2025 to kick things off. And then from there, he kind of let his foot off the gas. So Drew could be in first place or second place on this list, but he didn't play in Louisville or Atlanta this past year. You know, just kind of took it easy until Worlds after winning back-to-back regionals. But when I think of Drew's play style, I think of just like raw efficiency. I think of Drew as like someone who just never misplays. He just like, it feels like he plays flawless every game. You know that you have to play your best and also be flawless because he's going to give you his best. You know, his Rodan list was very, very aggressive. I think he was playing like Ascend a Battle. It was definitely not like the Void Rodans that dirtle and take a long time and play very defensive games. He was very, very capable of killing you early. I want to say that was when Science Bros first came out and kind of transformed that deck. And then King Ghidorah, that was, I think, the longest finals of this past year. Travis versus Drew, I think it took like 3 hours. I mean, that was like an NFL football game, and he actually ended up winning by mill because he had such a strong defensive stage. That was before Unyielding Destruction came and kind of took away Ghidorah's stage power. But when I think of Drew, I don't think of him as someone who plays the most broken decks, although he's good at identifying them. Right, for Albuquerque, he's like, hey, everybody go on Air Nick Reagan. This deck is broken. At Worlds, he's like, everybody play Godzilla. This is the most broken deck right now. But then he went off and played King Ghidorah. He went off and played Deku. You know, I guess these characters that more match his preferred play style. But he just, you know, I think he skill gaps a lot of players. And so even if he's not playing the most broken deck, he's not going to misplay. So Drew, going into 2026, plans to attend all the events and to continue to be a top performer. At number 2, we have Calvin Harrigal from Team The Trading Post alongside Mitchell. And he had got a data score of 916, a win rate of 75%. He was second place in Las Vegas, top 16 in St. Louis, top 8 in Denver, the champion of the Louisville Regional here this past year. Top 4 in the Atlanta Regional this past year, top 8 in Toronto, and then top 16 in Worlds. The 2 characters that I most think of him for are Zeke and Devil Jin. Zeke is where he won Louisville. That was kind of the emergence of the backup decks. You know, backups had been around for several sets, but there hadn't really been a backup deck to take over the meta until Attack on Titan Apocalypse came out, and we had the 9 Titans, I think, throughout the ages. And I feel like Calvin is very, very good at identifying broken cards, broken combos, and leaning entirely into that broken card or broken combo. So Zeke taking it with 9 Titans, and then we had Devil Jin. We had Equipment Heist Devil Jin. I had my doubts at the time as to like how consistent Equipment Heist in a 5-hander would be, but Calvin proved me wrong. Getting top 4 in Atlanta, and he was just killing everybody on turn 2. And since 9 Titans has been banned, Equipment Heist has been banned. That's a pretty common theme throughout this video, actually. You typically see the best players playing the most broken things, and then those things end up getting banned because of the best players playing them. Okay, Calvin for 2026, same thing as most all the players here, plans to continue playing at a high level in 2026. We won't be missing him. And finally, at number 1, we have our undisputed top player in the modern era of Universus, Travis Tangeman. His data score was 1,167. That was more than 200 of second place. Win rate of 75%. Actually, if you look at wins and losses, Travis and Calvin were the exact same, down like the exact same in wins and losses. The difference came in data score from Travis doing really, really well at prestigious events. So champion of St. Louis, top 8 in Atlanta, the U.S. national champion, followed up the national championship with second place in Worlds, losing to Kevin Broberg in 2024. Top 8 in Denver, second place in Albuquerque to Drew, top 8 in Atlanta, and top 16 in Worlds. And when I think of Travis, I think of Elder Toguro and Krista. These were characters and decks that came out of nowhere. At least the majority of Universus players, myself included, maybe I'm doing some projecting here, did not see these characters coming for these events and dominating so well. I think Travis was the only Elder Toguro to register at St. Louis. That was over 160 players. He was playing this very unique deck that hadn't really been seen before. It was only playing 6 attacks. It was playing like, what was the foundation? Sports Festival Champ, where like the damage of your attack can't be reduced, and then you would swap it and make it. I mean, it was like One Punch Deku before Deku was released. And then put you in prison until he got to kill you in one hit. And then Krista, kind of a slept on character from Attack on Titan Origins of Power, because she's not adding or taking away damage or speed. You know, she's giving stun and then stacking your deck. But Travis and the MGLA team discovered just how quickly they could stack those wall counters, and that they could just keep using runaway on defense, and then they can guarantee their checks by always stacking a 6, and or by stacking the attacks they need and drawing it, using that with like Walk the Dog. You just got these massive stun decks. Also breaking the card, Wall Maria's Might, where you just draw 1,000,000. So you're guaranteeing your checks, you're drawing 1,000,000, you're playing all this massive stun, and you're just eventually winning the game, and then your rival can't attack into you because you're stacking terrible things for them and playing runaway. So this, I thought that Krista was pretty good. I think I had her in like B tier, but I did not see her coming and winning nationals and then almost winning Worlds of that year. So 2 decks, I would say that like Travis is like probably the best deck builder of the modern era of Universus. So with that, Travis for 2026 does plan to continue to play competitively, but he said that he's going to kind of take it down a notch and play a little bit more for fun and a little bit less stressful of play. But he will still be around in 2026. So pretty much everybody in this top 10 list is going to continue playing for this next organized play competitive season. So there you have it. This is the top 10. Travis Tangeman coming in at number 1, Calvin Harrigal at number 2, Drew at 3, Kevin at 4, Justin at 5, Barlow at 6, George at 7, Tim at 8, 9, Mike, and 10, we have Mitchell. So the modern era, I don't think is over yet. We at least have this upcoming year that I would include in the modern era, and we'll see where things go with Universus in 2027 and beyond. But I hope to do this video again next year and update this top 10. We'll see whose names fall out of this top 10 and whose names come in. So if you're like me and your name is not on this top 10 list, then join me in Chicago and let's go win it all and make them include us going forward. But for now, that is going to do it for this video, guys. I will see you in a couple weeks in Chicago.